Last name pronounced Kinard?
Kinard.
Kinard.
Used to be Kinard, but my granddad changed it
Why did you change it?
because everyone called him Kinard. So he was like, fine. So my dad was the first official Kinard in my family, and then me, and then my son. And I have a daughter too, but eventually that'll change.
And BJ stand for something?
Benjamin James,
Benjamin James.
which my parents wanted to call me BJ. Hospital said no, can't do that. This is the 70s.
Okay.
And they wanted to name me after, do you know who BJ Honeycutt is?
I don't.
So BJ Honeycutt was a character on a TV show called MASH, which
I know MASH.
yeah. So BJ Honeycutt's on that. So like, we want to name him BJ after BJ Honeycutt. And then, so they said, you can't just name him BJ. So on the spot, my parents came up with Benjamin James, and I never knew my name until kindergarten.
No way.
Yeah. Sad as that is.
Well, Benjamin James Kinard.
Yep.
Welcome on the show, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on. Tell me a little bit about, and for the audience as well, a little bit about what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis.
At this point in my life, I'm very fortunate. My day-to-day typically is I wake up at 8. I get out of the bed about 9, which is pretty sad because I lay in there for an hour on my phone. And then I do a lot of nothing around the house. I got to be at work at 11:30. I do a read-through because I do television news. I do a read-through with my partner. And then, so we know what the stories are. We know how to pronounce the stuff. We know how to change, anything that needs to be changed from our producer. And then I change into a suit. So I'm like business up top, party down below. I wear workout clothes to work. So every day on the news, I've got shorts, sneakers on, but then I've got a shirt, tie, and a jacket. So you never see that I'm ready for, workout business and then TV business. In the studio at 12:20, live at 12:30. I'm done at 1 o'clock. It's literally my whole day. That's it. That's a regular day. So I work for an hour and a half.
Now, what has it taken? What have you had to go through within that career realm to get to that point?
Lots. Yeah. So full background, I started doing radio at the age of 18 in 1996. So initially I wanted to be a psychologist or a therapist of some sort. But I did my morning announcements in high school. I'm from Atlanta. I'm from a burb of Atlanta called Still Mountain, largest Confederate memorial in the world, which is interesting to live there. In the dynamics that it's gone through, but I'm not ashamed of my hometown or any of that. It's progressed very far, which is awesome. So I did my morning announcements, and people said I sounded like a DJ, like a radio person. I was like, shut up, I don't want to do that. Then I thought about it. I love music, loved it. I mean, I'm a child of the grunge era, and so I thought about it. If I could play music for a living on the radio and go see concerts, why would I not do that? So then I got into radio. And my first job was in Athens, Georgia, and I got guaranteed one shift a weekend. That's it. I lived an hour from there. So instead of just driving to do that shift once a weekend, hour back and forth, I was like, I'm going to move to Athens. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be the person who's there every day, getting paid or not. I'm going to be the fill-in guy when I can be that, and I get good enough to be that person. So that's what I did. I lived 3 blocks from the radio station with one of my best friends at the University of Georgia. All my friends are there. It's where I would have gone to college. But instead, I'm just doing radio. And then after several months, we got bought out. I became full-time. And I made $13,000 a year. That's it. I lived off of ramen noodles. I lived off of radio station food. Like, listeners bring us food, or if we're doing a radio remote and there's food for listeners, I got to take that stuff home because I was poor. So I'm doing that. I'm working at Best Buy from 6 in the morning until noon. I would go home. I would sleep for an hour or two. My shift started at like 5. I was on the air at 6 till midnight. After midnight, I'd go party with my friends till about 2, go to sleep till about 4 or 5, wake up, rinse and repeat. And then I had 3 jobs at one point to support radio, and then just kind of grew from there. Before doing my short schedule now, I was the operations manager for 5 stations, radio stations here in town, which means I oversaw all the radio stations. I was program director for 2 of those radio stations. That's the person who literally runs it. They're the ones that picks the music, the zips and zaps you hear in between, over the DJs, all that stuff, works for promotions, worked with sales. I'm over 2 of those stations doing that, and I'm on the air, and I'm doing the news, and I'm a talent coach. and I'm a dad and a husband, and then decided I need to take a step back. Only did TV. I did a little bit of radio, like recording stuff or whatever. So now I get to step back and just sort of enjoy my time. But it's taken a lot. I mean, I'm 96 to now. I don't want to do the math because it'll make me feel old. But in between, just busting ass to get to where I don't have to bust ass as much now.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that, but I see you working out at the gym all the time still. You know, it's like you were like, oh, maybe I'll pull back in some regards, and I'm sure you're finding yourself having that level of ambition transfer into other realms of your life.
My therapist said you need to be active. You need to get busy. And, you know, television news is a weird thing. I have a lot of disconnect on purpose. Literally every day, someone's dead, someone was shot, someone was stabbed, there was an explosion, there was a war. And people can go all day, all week, all year, never know any of that if they don't go looking for it. It's my job to tell it to you. I have to know it. I see it and read it and say it every single day. I never really thought about it until my therapist sort of pointed that out a little bit. Almost like Wile E. Coyote when he walks off the cliff and doesn't realize he doesn't have a floor under him. And then he looks down and he's like, oh, then he falls. I didn't really realize that I am being inundated with all the bad, but also the good every day. And that'll put you mentally in a little spin cycle if you kind of dig at it too long. And so she's like, go get active. And so 2.5 years ago, I started hitting the gym and said, let's go get it. And now I'm the heaviest I've ever been, but in a good way. In muscle. I'm still reaching. I'll be 46 this year. Still reaching for new PRs for bench and I rep 225 8.5 times the other day. When I started, I couldn't do 175. And so the fact that I'm just one time and then doing 225 for almost 9 whole reps, for me, that's let's go.
I mean, we've talked about it. I feel like just small talk at the gym, but you have a stature and a build that really predisposes you to excel in certain lifts.
Yeah.
Bench press probably being one of them.
Now, it was my worst. I just never did it. Never, I never lifted weights in high school. I wish I did.
Really?
You've seen my son goes to the gym, and he's a junior in high school. But it wasn't. I played basketball and I played baseball, and on the high school level, I couldn't play basketball at the high school level because predominantly black high school in Atlanta. I was friends with the coach. He said, "You're short, you're white, can't play for this team." I was like, "Okay." I mean, I could shoot lights out-ish, but I didn't have any business being on that team. So I would play rec ball, loved it, but you're not going to lift weights for that. And then for baseball, our conditioning was nothing. Like, we just practiced and then we played. Our gym at the school was kind of relegated to just the football players, but I wish I would have done it. I did get a pull-up bar. I had a buddy named Kendall Armstrong. Kendall had everything. Divorced parents, so because of that, dad gets him this, mom gets him this. They had money. He had like all these gaming systems, plural. Like nowadays, that's commonplace.
Right.
I had a Nintendo, but I was like the second person or third person to have that Nintendo after everyone else got it, But he had all these things, and he had a pull-up bar. I'd never seen one. And he got it. My man couldn't do a chin-up or a pull-up. I could do a pull-up. Just one, but I could do it. That's something I had over Kindle. So I asked my parents, could I have a pull-up bar? And they said yes. So I put one in my door frame in my bedroom, and I started working on doing pull-ups. And that was the only workout I ever really did, was just doing pull-ups and chin-ups. And then that's it. So I didn't actually get into a gym for the first time until I was 18 or 19, just for a little bit.
Yep. Put
on about 10 pounds. And that was it. But I had like these roided out dudes. I'd go work out from 12:30 at night on some of those days until 2 in the morning or so, because there was a Gold's Gym that was 24 hours in Athens. And the guy who worked there was roided out. And the dude who came in, who was like some sort of a sales guy, he was also roided out. We were like the only 3 people in there ever. So they just walked me through what to do. They kind of took me under their wing. No steroids, though now I could probably use them. And so that was the first time I ever did that stuff. And I didn't do a whole lot of it. But now it's a focus. Now I have a goal,
So you said you're 46 years old?
Yeah, I'll be 47 coming up.
Okay. Have you gotten any blood work done or potentially looked into the opportunity that maybe HGH could be for you? Or
I've thought about those, and I think I just did the math in my head. I'll be 46 this year. Yeah, so I am younger than I think. I've thought about those, but luckily I've still been able to go with goals and attain those goals. So because of it, I feel like I'm good. Like I don't have to figure out, is my testosterone level low or any of these things. I've literally lifted the most weight I've ever lifted in my life like a month ago. And then coming up in another month, I'm going to lift more weight than I've ever lifted again to get those new PRs. The moment I start to plateau,
Then I think that's
now
the
I'll go
perfect way to
explore.
look at it.
Because, I mean, trust me, I don't recover as well as I would have back in the day.
Right.
And I see it even with my son, who is on his journey starting. Great for him. He'll recover way faster than me and all of that for the next 15 or 20 years. But the fact that I can go in, do what I do, not like feel like I'm dying the next day, I'm good. But the moment that really starts to affect me to where if I have one of those moments that I say, I don't feel like going today because I hurt too much, that's a problem. Because I love going to the gym. I want to go every single day. And I have just that little level of soreness that you should have because you worked hard the day before. I don't want to be to that point where it's like, I can't do it today. Then I'll investigate. And then the trend, I think, is one of the things that's out there.
Oh, God.
And
Well, that's probably on the more extreme end of the spectrum. I mean, I think I mentioned HGH, but I meant HRT,
yeah,
hormone replacement
right.
therapy.
Yeah. Hey, trust me, I've got friends that are doctors. I've asked about HGH. That stuff's expensive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Natural. Give me some. I'd eat stem cells like vitamins. If I thought it would be if I could do it and afford it.
Right. So you mentioned your son.
Yeah.
So I think something I'd really like to delve into is you have a policy, you said, with your kids when it comes to having some kind of an activity we spoke about briefly.
Yeah.
Walk me through that.
So I always played sports growing up. My dad was a college baseball player, blew out his knee, couldn't play college anymore, but his high school team, state champs like every year. So I was going to play ball. It's the moment I could swing a bat, throw a ball, I was doing it. Then I found basketball as well. So I was always active all the way through up until my senior year of high school. My sister always danced, and then she was on the drill team. And so it was one of those things that my parents never said, you guys need to do these things. It's just something that we always did. And so it's what I associate with part of me being like a team player. I was on teams. And that's kind of how that works. And so my wife and I talked about when we had kids, because my wife didn't play a lot of sports growing up, but like she was like team manager of things in high school, and she was active. She did gymnastics, which is a lot of individual, but there are some team aspects of that we want our kids to be busy. Like if our kids are coming home and getting on the gaming consoles or their phones or the computer, and not being active, what are we raising, and what type of kid is that going to be? They're going to be lazy. They're not going to be motivated. So the rule is you have to do something. We don't really care what it is, as long as you're active and you love it. Like that's the key. We're not ever going to force you on anything. There's a time in my life, like with baseball, that I realized that I was playing for my dad and I wasn't playing for me. So I took a year off and actually coached with my dad. So he's the coach of the team. I'm a kid coaching first base and doing that sort of thing. And eventually after, a year or two, found my love of baseball again, and I played for me. So that taught me, don't make your kid do something they don't want to do. And it's not that my dad did that. I just realized that I wasn't playing for me. So my daughter danced all the way through high school, 22 hours a week on top of grades. My daughter was salutatorian of her high school. And if it wasn't for a satellite school that feeds into that, she would have been valedictorian. Some other kid at the smart school was the valedictorian, but she's putting in all those hours and still getting straight A's. Can't ask for more. And then my son played travel soccer up until just over a year ago, and he got burned out. Just tired of being hurt, tired of the attitudes, because his last game was the state championship for his age group, and that was the second year in a row that team was in the state championships. Won it the year before, lost it with a minute and a half to go on a banger on the upper left corner. And that was the last game. He's like, I'm it. I'm done. But we knew that going into that game. So we're like, all right, well, you got to do something. We don't care. You want to pick a new sport? Pick a new sport. Try anything you want, whatever. And so he goes, I think we'll work out. All right, man, well, you got to go work out. And that doesn't mean you get to go on Saturday. You got to go multiple days a week. You got to treat this like it's your sport, because soccer, you're there Monday, Wednesday, Thursday for practice. Weekends, you have 1 to 4 games on the weekend. So you can't go from all this to like, I think we'll go on Wednesday. So he goes when he can. He's probably there 3 to 5 days a week, putting in the work. So that's what he does. And then my daughter's at college. So I don't know what she's doing. I do. She's a good kid, but even still, she does Pilates and she's still active to this day while, getting good grades in college.
When it comes to like from the father's perspective and seeing the other kids that your kids are hanging around or hanging out with, or other kids that are their age in their class, whatever, do you see that a lot of other kids are having these same values instilled in them, that they're kind of like going out, being active, their parents are pushing them as well? Or do you see a lack thereof in today's day and age?
I think it's 50-50. Like, so my nephew, super smart, great kid. He's a year younger than my son. He's into Lego and like those sorts of things. Like, doesn't play any sports. But the other side of that is they have a pool, like a rec pool, whatever. And so he runs the concession stand there. It's all his. Like, that thing was sitting there doing nothing. He said, can I come and sell stuff and whatever? He makes money doing that. So though he's not out, shooting hoops, he started a little business. So I'm all right with that. He's doing something, right? He's not necessarily running around. So there's that angle of it. And then, there's other kids that have their face in the device at all times. But I think one interesting dynamic, and I've talked about this with my son, and I even saw a kid last night that's a friend of his. That kid gets up in the morning and is at the gym at 5 o'clock because he's got soccer practice in the afternoon, this friend. And happened to catch him at the gym last night because he couldn't make it that morning. He's like, it's the first time I've been here in the evening time. It's busy. 5 o'clock in the morning, it's not. That kid is 17 years old, getting up in the morning before school to go work out, then go to school, and then go to soccer practice afterwards, because there's a certain aesthetic that's out there right now. My son says that, like, I feel like everybody works out these days, because you look on your phone and you look on Instagram, what do you see? All these jacked up dudes, Sam Sulek and all these specimens. I didn't get to see that. If I wanted to see something, I either saw it on TV or I happened to see it in a magazine when I was a kid. That was the access to it. And if I picked up the magazine, I had to look at that for 30 days before I got to see more pictures. Now you can see a bazillion pictures literally all day, every day. And so I think with them, they're inundated with it. So I think you have the one class of kids that just don't care. And then you have the other class of kids that's like, I need to look like this or similar to this. And that's what I see. And so, for my son's friends, he's got a good dynamic. He's got some theater kids that he's friends with, but they work out too because they're on stage. Like, they're in great shape. Danger always mentions, I should probably say my son's middle name is Danger, so I'll refer to him as Danger because that is what I call him. But his first name is Gavin, and he hates it that I can't switch over to that. But I've called him that for 16 years. It's tough. But I've talked with Gavin about the fact that, like, he's like, they got abs and they got this and they got that. And those are theater kids. They don't play any sports, but still going for the aesthetics. So I'm glad I didn't grow up in that time. I don't know what I'd look like today. I might be fat and lazy now because I was maybe burnt out by the time I got to this age, because I was doing it all in my teens because that's what I was looking at and seeing on my phone.
You have to be able to keep up with it. I mean, for me, it was, I guess my age group, I grew up on kind of the transition, the cusp of it becoming super mainstream. So, like, I didn't get my first phone until I was, I think, 16 years old. And it was just because I was going to be hanging out in town with friends and I had, like, my parents on speed dial on there. Mm-hmm. And, but, I wasn't, like, super consuming social media content until, probably later end of middle school, high school. But then it becomes this thing where it's, when I went to college, a lot of what I learned about business and what inspired me to, like, the realms of possibilities within business and entrepreneurship was seeing these guys on Instagram, YouTube, whatever platforms I was on. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because I wasn't seeing what all is entailed. What I was seeing is
the shine, the
hot girls, the fast cars, the nice watches, the fancy places they were going. And I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
So then, but the interesting thing to me, where I see the key difference I have observed in the individuals that actually take that, use it as fuel, and make something out of it, as opposed to those who initially probably try and use it as motivation or fuel, but then it quickly overwhelms them and they feel like this fear of missing out all the time. Mm-hmm. What really separates the two, I think, is there's the ones that get caught up in the envy of it, and then there's those that find the shiny thing and become obsessed with how it works. Mm-hmm. Like the more engineer-minded type individuals of like, I want to, okay, he's got a really nice car. I want to know what he does for a living. Right. I want to know how long he's done it. I want to know if he's married, has kids. I want to know everything about him and study the individual and the game as opposed to the content or the end result. Mm. So a lot of kids now, it's what I feel like, because now they're consuming so much of this social media content, their news feed, and it's so much of like that end result, Sam Solex, all these different guys.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Sam Solex, he exploded so quickly. Very young kid. His growth on YouTube has been unprecedented.
Yeah. He's a freak of nature.
He's an absolute freak of nature. And he also, mind you, there's so many of the business gurus and, you know, there's guys like me and videography and doing social media marketing, things like that, that'll tell you like, oh, you got to do high quality video. You got to do it this way. You got to do it that way. You got to build the studio for the podcast. That kid broke every rule in the effing book. Mm-hmm. Every single rule. He picked up I think it's his phone. He picked up his phone, he puts it on his dash, and he presses record. And then he brings it around with him in the gym with him.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that. It's like, it's that same thing is like he saw what he wanted. And then he was like, okay, reverse engineer it. Bingo. I've got a starting point and I've got checkpoints along the way. And I'm just going to execute that's all I'm going to focus on is execution in between.
Yeah.
Reach a checkpoint, execute again.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately it comes down to just being compelling, whatever it is. So we have an interesting dynamic in television to where I'm on TV every single day. I'm in front of professional cameras on a professionally lit studio and a professionally built studio set, and I'm on TV every single day. And there are people who have zero experience with anything besides living their life, who have a high quality phone, which now that's all of them. The cameras on those phones are as good quality as the ones in my studio. It's just where technology is these days. So these kids with no experience pick it up, record it, put it out there, and they will have more followers and more viewers than what we get, and they don't even know what they're doing. So we're at like this weird point of television to like, well, this is what we do for a living. Why can't we get and do what these people are doing who literally are just filming their life, or a guy who loves to make toothpicks in his spare time and he's going to film himself taking a piece of wood and with a knife whittling down to a toothpick. You know why? Because people will watch that. And that thing's going to get 1 million views. And did I have 1 million viewers today? The answer to that is no. And so for us, we're like, why can't you do that? Well, because if everyone could do it, everyone would do it. So we think about it all the time. You know, like in TV, we talk about what can we do that we can do for online? What can we do that might potentially not go viral? Because I hate it when people say, you know, make a viral video. You can't do that. No one, I mean, it's viral for a reason.
Yeah, it's your fault.
But what you can do is create content that can be compelling, that can get repeat viewership. Maybe not on that one video, but if you're consistent and whatever you're doing is cool, then maybe you start to get that following. And now by the end of it, now you have a base. And it's not viral. Maybe you eventually become viral because your videos start getting circulated so much, but because you started creating enough compelling content and you put it out there enough, then maybe you build to that. But then you've got the Sams of the world that are just
breaking all the rules.
I see his stuff, and I think you can break it based upon who you are and what you are. If you look at a lot of the Smartless is one of the most popular podcasts in the world. It's Jason Bateman, it's Will Arnett, and it is Sean Hayes. All three of them are celebrities. All three of them already are uber popular, and they, to start, got their friends to be their guests. Who isn't going to watch that? So they have this massive leg up because you're automatically going to tune in because you like these guys, you like what they have to offer. And then if you take someone who may have amazing content, but we don't know who they are, that person's got to grind and like really grind. And just when he thinks it's not going to work, you got to keep grinding. Some people have the leg up out of the gate. Sam, just because of the way he looks and what he's doing, people are going to go, what is this oddity? I'm going to look at this. What is he doing? I lift weights too. I want to look like this. Let me do this. So his leg up was just how freakishly inhuman he is. So he's the car crash. You're going to look at it. Not everybody's the car crash.
It's interesting the way you put it that way, because it's extremely accurate to the way I would have kind of envisioned it. Where do you see the future of, how do you see news companies, massive media companies, how do you see them adapting? Our Fox News, our CNN, our NBC, where do you see them going? Because I've been seeing there's more and more media companies coming out now. Patrick Bet-David, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he has his media company, Valuetainment. And it's super interesting the way that he built it, because there's Valuetainment, which is like your overarching, that's your Fox or your CNN, whatever. That's the overarching umbrella company. But within it, all that Valuetainment is that simply that. It's the umbrella. And within it, he has brought on individuals with large personal brands in finance, in marketing, in X, Y, and Z. He brings them under the umbrella, pays them, and they just host their show within his network. It's a really interesting dynamic, but the amount of the sheer views that they're getting in comparison to some of these other news companies, like no one thought, I don't think, that you could just start. Now everyone can be their own media company. Every business should be their own media company. Yeah, that's how you market yourself.
If they know what they're doing.
That is correct.
Yeah. So, because so that gentleman sounds like he's taking people who have already built up a following.
That's exactly right.
Then pays them to let me help you get that out there. The hard part is to be the person to get that following. And it's that grind to where you got to work at it and you got to work at it and you got to build. For every 1,000 people that are doing that right now, maybe one of them might get some real traction. And then you spread that out about the 1 million people that are doing it. You're going to have your pockets of success. So for like a Fox News and a CNN and MSNBC, they've already found their future. They decided that years ago when they said, Fox said, we're going to be right-leaning. CNN said, we're going to be left-leaning. MSNBC said, we're going to be far left-leaning. And the centrists are gone. And that's where TV news used to be. If you turned onto Walter Cronkite and these guys, you trusted them for whatever they were going to tell you was going to be the baseline middle of the news. And that's what you would hope for. That's what any of us should hope for even right now, is that when we go on a website or we hear a news or we do whatever, that hopefully it's what I should know, not what you want me to know. And there's a real big difference there. And so they've decided this is going to be our audience. Because the kicker is America as a whole are centrists. There's people on the right, there's people on the left, but most of us are right down the middle in some capacity. Might lean a little right, might lean a little left, but this is us. But the loudest voices are out here on the periphery of that. And so this is what you think America is and how America thinks. So if this is the case, that's why Fox News is leaned over to this side, because these are the louder voices. These are the ones that are going to interact with you more, because your regular person isn't going to put a complaint on a Facebook page or on Reddit, or even if they had bad service somewhere, they're just gonna be like, our waitress could have been a lot better, that my food's cold, I'm not really gonna send it back. That's most people. But you've got the people like, oh, not only am I sending this back, I want this free and I want a free dessert and blah, this, and this, those louder voices. And then you might feel like that's the majority. Everyone's getting this poor service now, whatever it happens to be. So I think those companies have figured out what they wanted. But the rest of the companies have to figure out is, where do you want to be? And if you do want to be down the middle, how do you do that in a manner that you can get those viewers? Because the viewers are here and here, but we're right here. We don't want to go over here. We don't want to go over here. Can we not just be like regular news? Can we not just be a regular company that speaks for the regular person? In today's time, not really. Can you name or think of something that's like, oh, they are right down the middle?
Not one.
Even Chick-fil-A, probably the most popular fast food place in America. Not even across all of America, but they're still the most popular. But if you think about them, they would tell you they're more to the right.
Yep.
They have an issue with gays, and they're very religious. So even they are branded to the right, because to a certain extent, they kind of are, but not really. Like coincidentally, my cousin went to the Truett Catholic Church in Georgia. And so when my cousin graduated from high school, and her friends, when they took their senior trip, they went to one of the Cathy's houses in Florida, and that's where they got to stay. So I'm familiar with that environment, and it's just almost like Southern people, growing up in the South, Southern values to a certain extent, and they get kind of branded, but they're still the most popular place that gets talked about more often than anything in a positive light. Every Chick-fil-A's got a line around the building, but they're a little bit over here.
It is interesting that do you think if you were to create a media company of your own and your goal was to attract and to speak to people from as close to that middle line as possible, what would be some measures that you think would be worth taking to try and do that? Or do you not even see it as something that's possible?
I think you could. I think you have to put it almost in a daily show. Even John Krasinski doing his good news during COVID kind of cast. I think you have to present it as like, I'm here for you. I don't have any other agenda. I'm going to try to tell you what this is as best I can without giving you the other stuff, just to give it to you. Where let's have some fun with it if we can, but just know you can trust me. Because I don't know if I can trust the Fox people or the CNN people as for what they're delivering to me, right? They've got their edict. They've got their the news that gets handed down. We're not told what to put on our newscasts. Our producer picks our stories every day. We kind of give some guidance as to like, this is probably what our audience is what they would care about. We don't necessarily need a Britney Spears story in entertainment, but we could do sort of a Michelle Pfeiffer story because our demographic is a little older for our news. But that's about the extent of that. I also try to make sure for our newscasts, if a story comes from a certain site that might lean a certain way, I want to make sure that the other viewpoint is there. Whatever meets in the middle, that's what we're going to have on our news. And we alter that to be like, look, if we say this, we sound like this. If we say this, we're regular people. There's no agenda here. So I think if I wanted to try to do a centrist news type of thing, I think it would have to be with an understanding of trust. How can I build that trust? And for me, I like to have fun. So I like to kid a good bit. So I would probably paint a little humor into some of it to kind of call out maybe the stuff that's on the right, maybe the stuff that's on the left, just to tell you, this is probably what you're going to hear over here. This is probably what you're going to hear over here. This is the information. I don't know if it works. I mean, if it's compelling, people will watch it. If not, I'll fail like everybody else.
What I would wonder is because you're not going to be getting I looked at news media content in general as like building a little fire. Mm-hmm. And where people throw around like that blanket term, virality, whatever. To me, that's gasoline getting poured on the fire. And 9 times out of 10, that gasoline comes in the form of hatred. Mm-hmm. So it's people that are commenting or sharing something in spite of what it is, the message that you're actually saying. And it would be, you would almost, if you wanted to ride that middle, the only way that you're going to be able to compete at the level of doing the numbers that they will get on the extreme sides would be to formulate a strategy that pisses off both of the extreme sides. Where it's like, look at this guy watering down a serious issue. Mm-hmm. Like he doesn't know anything. Like he wants to just give you the facts. Like he doesn't have morals or whatever, XYZ. Or you might have, maybe some religious groups on the right side that might be like, oh, like this is heinous, whatever.
Mhm.
I almost feel like you would have to, if you wanted to compete for the viewership.
Yeah. So one rule we always had, like at least with radio, is there's always a number one station, and then there's a 2, a 3, a 4, all the way down. If you're not number one, you can talk about the people in front of you higher than you as much as you want. The moment number one talks about you, you won. Because finally, the one that's got the most people and the one that's got the clout and got all that, the cool kid, has now said your name. They've talked about you. What does that do? That elevates you. You are now mentioned by the cool kid. You're in the freaking orbit of the cool kid now, and you just got some clout. So to speak of what you're saying, yeah, if I can get them to talk about me at all, I win. I can talk about them all day. They're beating me, and that's okay. I can tell you what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. But the moment they point something out to me, now it starts to climb. That's why you see even like the late night talk show guys. They'll pick that big thing and they'll go after it because it's the thing. And then when they talk about the fact that, oh, the late night people were talking about me again last night, adds validity to what they were doing. If they said nothing about the fact that there was a joke made about them last night or whatever, it doesn't reach the people who didn't see it. So if I'm watching a late night talk show and I saw that joke, the only people who saw it are those that are watching it in that moment. But the moment the person I do the joke about says something about it, now people take that and run. Now that clip that's out there on the internet, everyone's going to watch that now.
That's super interesting. So let me get your advice on something. So for me, a lot of my video content in the realm of my personal brand, the podcast, et cetera, a lot of it's pulling these bite-sized clips.
Mm-hmm.
And I am an avid fan of telling someone something that's very hard to contest, a fact-based statement. Hey, if you ate healthier and worked out regularly, you would live a longer, healthier life. XYZ, whatever.
Yes, statistically speaking, that is correct.
Statistically speaking.
Yeah.
I will take that exact message, that positive message that is very hard to argue with, and I'll wrap it up in really ugly wrapping paper. Because I know that ticking off the right people or the wrong people for my content and for me and my personal brand, ticking them off, getting them to fuel the pushing of that video means that video and that message, the underlying positive message, will eventually reach more people. The question for me really is, how do you go about, so like I said, I'm going about it in a strategic manner, but how do you do that? How do you rationalize that from a moral standpoint internally? Or is there no rationalizing it?
Well, I mean, the flip on that would be, what if you put the positive spin on it and take the same people who have the same level as the haters, influencer-wise, whatever. Let's say hater number one's got 1 million followers, but positive guy number one has 1 million followers. If you can get that guy to do the same exact thing, you're putting this content out there that's positive and fresh, like a Joey Swole, and then this guy is sharing it, you're going to get the same. This guy's going to share it. The same number of viewers are going to see it, but now people who are more in line with where you are going to see it. And you don't have to worry about that stuff rising to the top. It was already here the whole time. So you could do the positive and go for the positive people and get the right people to share, and then you don't have to worry about the moral compass of it all. So you can get the haters. I mean, heck, that's there's the Goob 2. I can't think of his name. He's a guy, and he exposes fitness influencers.
I've seen him.
Yeah. And his whole thing is people are constantly on him but all he does is everything he does is truth. Like, he's literally pointing out this person has changed their photograph. Let me show you how. Let me show you where. And the only reason I'm calling it out is because they're saying this, this, and this, because they can do irreparable harm to the people who are buying their courses, and you're telling them what to eat and all these things, and they're a fraud. But he's got a lot of haters because he exposes people. But there's a lot of people who support him because he is doing a positive thing. Right. He's kind of reached that level. He's kind of got both. I would take the avenue of trying to get the person who I'm trying to be like, or the person that influences me. I want to get their attention. I want them to prop me up. And then hopefully the people, because I'm a fan of this person, people like me are a fan of this person. And if they can prop me up, then I can hopefully be a fan of those people as well. Because, I mean, the other side of it could work. I think the positive road would be a quicker road, because then you don't have to fight through anything. It's all good. You know, whoever your hero happens to be, if you can get them to, you know, hashtag you one time or duet or do whatever one time, it could pay dividends.
It's a very interesting perspective on it.
Yeah, but you were mentioning earlier, like if I wanted to do a centrist news, if I wanted to start a media company now, all I would do is I would find people who do whatever they do every single day, whatever it happens to be. I make pens. I make writing pens.
I actually just saw that website this morning.
And so I've done some videos of how you make a pen. I mean, I do, you know, roller balls, all twists, whatever. And I would find people who are doing stuff every day and just say, hey, look, I need you to record this. Can you give me one video a week to start? You be you, record it. And we're going to load this arc up of talented people doing whatever it happens to be. Someone who's lifting weights, someone who's making pens, someone who is a fashion person, someone who loves to go out and eat fast food, who loves to talk about eating fast food. And you're going to, this is the meat sandwich. Let's see if we can put this thing down and what that's like. He's recording it. Cool. I'll take that. Give me the content of what you're doing every day. That is what I'm building my company on, because that is the stuff that is in everybody's feed in some capacity. And it doesn't cost me anything more than you living your life. I don't have to try to figure out some sort of a niche to be in. You're already in the niche. Just record it for me, please. And then I'll edit it, or you can edit it. Heck, these days, the apps are so easy to do. Just make it a minute and a half long. And then let's grow this thing. That's what I would do. Because that's a lot easier than trying to create something. It's already there. Let's just run with it.
Would you have branded vehicles for each niche, or would you, like, for instance, a cooking channel under your media company umbrella? Or
once you get enough people. Yeah, once I've got a couple of, like, there's one guy that I watch, it's Chef Reactions. I don't even know his name. He wears a baseball cap. He's like from New York or something, and he gets real close to the camera and he's watching somebody cook very poorly, and he's just reacting to it. Dude's got over 1 million followers now. He quit his job as a chef. This is all he does now. And he also does some great videos. And his whole thing is just duetting. And then at the end of it, would he eat it? Would he not eat it? And he gives it a scale of 0 to 10. And usually most of the time it's terrible. He's like, no, I would try that most of the time. But then there's some people's like, oh, that's 11 out of 10. I would eat all of it. You know, so he has the positive in there too. But yeah, so you could take someone who's doing something like that, and then you could take the person who's actually making the stuff, and then you could find another angle for it as well. And yeah, put them all under the cooking, the cooking button, or the woodworking button, or the craft button, or the fashion button, or just the I'm eating food button. It's all there. And then under that one, you have to put the ASMR button as well.
That's intriguing.
That's what I would do.
Okay. So BJ, tell me, what is the current chapter of your life? What do you have unfolding? What are you working on right now? And what are you hoping that the next 1 to 5 years is going to look like?
So a lot, actually. So my wife and I bought the territory we're in now for Badass Coffee of Hawaii, because it's, one, we want to be the stewards of our own fate, masters of, what's the next 5 years going to look like. We want to control that. Not that I don't I'll still do television. My wife will still do her job, whatever. But We want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're controlling. And so we took a look at, I've always wanted to own my own business just because growing up, my dad was always trying to figure out what business he could do. And then ultimately he bought a RV service center and grew it from a 2-bay operation to a 4-bay operation. And I worked at that place from like the 4th grade all the way until my senior year of high school. And so that's where I built my work ethic, was through my dad. So because of him, I think I've always just like, you know what, I think I want to do my own thing at some point. But I've always done radio. I'd contemplated, can I buy a radio station? I don't know if you've looked. They're not cheap.
Really?
Heck, nowadays they probably are because of the internet and streaming.
Sale.
Yeah. But, at the height of radio, in my lifetime, way too expensive for that sort of thing. And so we looked at this market and said, what's it missing? And believe it or not, it's missing coffee. That's not the big two, if it's Starbucks or if it's Dunkin'. And that's it. That's pretty much what you got around here. So we said we have a transient market where 19 to 20 million people come in every year. That adds on top of us already being a top 100 market in America anyway. So we have the base. Let's do coffee. We love Badass Coffee of Hawaii. I've known about it for 20 plus years. It's my parents' favorite coffee. And so we checked out and said, let's see about if we can do this, and went through the process with Badass. They approved us because it's not like places just aren't handing out franchises, even if you have the money for it, they don't want to fail. They don't want you to fail. So we bought the territory. So we'll do at least 3 stores, up to like maybe 5 or 6. So we have a spot now that we're waiting for it to break ground, but the county is very slow in doing that. So that's where a lot of our eggs have been, just waiting for this first location to open. My wife and I are just in Denver at corporate, going through all of it, the business side of it, the marketing side of it. We're fortunate because my wife is a former CFO of a bank and the former COO of a bank. COO. And so she's got the business side down pat, the numbers down pat. I've got the marketing stuff down. I get to, shake babies and kiss hands and do that part of it, which I know how to do very well. And so really for the next 5 years, we'll be finding locations and opening locations for Badass while still doing what we do. And eventually I'd like to not have to do what I do, though I do love it. I don't know if I could ever give up television. It's the easiest job I've ever had. And it's hard for a lot of people, but I'm a radio person. I literally read words on a screen. Doesn't get much simpler than that. And I'm good at the other parts of it too, which makes it fun for me. But once we get these rolling and we get these going, that's our retirement. We can sit back and let them make money, have a regional manager. My wife and I can go travel the country. We want to hike every national park in America. Like that's the life goal. Be in a good enough shape when we're retirement age that we can go to Yosemite and hike. I want to go up El Capitan. I want to do whatever I can do over at Half Dome. And I want to go to whatever Arizona's got to offer. And then I want to go to Maine. Does Maine have anything cool we can hike that's a park? Let's go do it and actually be able to go do it. So that's more than 5 years. But in the 5 years, lots of Badass coffee.
That's awesome, man.
And TV. My daughter would graduate and have her master's from college. And then in 5 years, my son will be graduated from college as well. So, because we're empty nesters in a year and a half.
Perfect timing.
Maybe.
You'll find out.
Yeah. When my daughter transitioned out to go to college, I thought it was going to be a lot harder. And I love my daughter to pieces. Daddy's little girl, all of that stuff. But I think I found that she was so mature and so like kind of not ready to be on her own, but like I could see that she was just going to thrive outside of the house, that I really wanted that more for her than I did for her to be in my house and be with me to hold her back from any of those things. I don't need to be that. So when she left, it could have been harder, but when the second and last kid leaves, I don't know what happens then. Luckily, I'm good friends with my wife, so that'll work. She is my best friend, so that should work.
Well, that's always a plus. If there's one thing that you want to be remembered for after you're dead and gone, what is it?
I hope that I was a good person, and that's changed a lot too. I'm at a transition in my life now to where I want to help as best and as much as I can. Literally 3 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. Don't know why. I've always been philanthropic, but like now I'm at the point like I really want, with every fiber of my being, like what can I do for you? If I can do it, I will do it. And if somebody says, let me know if you need something, and it's just ambiguous, right? Do they mean it? Do they not? If I ever say that to anybody, I really mean that. Like, what do you need? I'm tempted at times when I see somebody walking down the road doing whatever. I'm like, God, they really look, they could use a ride. If I didn't think they might murder me, I would probably pull over and see if I could give them a ride. Because I want to help that person. I don't know if that's naive of me at this point in my life or not. So I hope by the end of it that they'll say that I was a good, generous person. And I think people who knew me 3 years ago could kind of say it, but if they could know me more now, I think they would. And I'm proud that I've made that sort of transition in my life. Maybe it's through reflection, I don't know. But I'm glad that I'm there. And I'm glad that I can be of service, whatever that happens to be. Unless it's monetary. I got to really think about that one.
Writing checks is definitely
that's a whole other ball game. Like helping nobody wants to help anybody move, man, I'll do it. I go to the gym. I can lift a couch. Let's go. Yep. You know, or I had a buddy who knows that I do woodworking, and his daughter wanted like some sort of not a cabinet, but just like almost like a nightstand type thing for her room. He's like, hey man, you mind if I come over and you help me build it? Yeah, man, come on, let's do it. And he's like, I'll pay you for your time. You don't have to pay me for your time. Like, this is fun. Like, we get to hang out. Yep. And I get to, help you do something for your daughter. Like, yeah, let's do that. Or somebody else be like, I want to spend the next 4 or 5 hours with somebody, doing this. Am I getting paid for that? I don't think like that anymore. At least I try not to.
That's a good way to be.
That's my hope. And then also that I was a hard worker. I probably want that almost as much as being, generous. Because I want them to go. Because my motto is, I dare you to outwork me. Like I live my life that way. No matter what it is. I will, if it's something new, making pens. I never knew how to make pens, but I can make some damn pens now. And they're all good. I sell them all over the world. Well, not necessarily the world. I have people who go to my website from all over the world, but I ship inside the U.S. But like, I'll take the Pepsi challenge against people who've been doing it longer than me, because when I got into it, I really got into it. I wanted to learn, how can I do this the best way for my skill level? And then let's take that skill level up a notch. So I put that into every aspect of my life. And I hope people see that. And then hopefully it inspires them.
That's a good way to be.
I try.
BJ, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and maybe we'll set up a second one after maybe a year of you having the coffee shops open, and maybe we'll see if you have some hair falling out by then.
Oh my goodness, it's turning gray more so than ever right now. Yes, I would be more than happy to do that, and we'll squeeze in some sets.
Absolutely.
As well.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.